Liang is a second grader at a public elementary school. There are 50 students in his class, but there's only one teacher standing in front of the whole class to deliver lessons. Even though teachers know one-size-fits-all pedagogy is not good for students' development, the large population base of one class made personalized education impossible. Liang's learning performance is mediocre, and his parents are looking for a tutor who can provide Liang with adaptive learning content and an individualized plan. Human tutors could help Liang on one-on-one basis, sitting next to him and watching how Liang performs on his study. Then tutors will design personalized content for Liang. Specifically, the tutor observes Liang's facial expressions to see whether he understands the learning materials or not. He pays close attention to Liang's engagement in learning. However, even though human tutors could provide adaptive instructions, they have limited ability on supervising students beyond facial expressions, gestures, and some other behaviors. What can human adaptive learning works better in order to help Liang? AI machine learning comes in to replace human intelligence to keep track on students' learning. They can easily detect how much time students spend on solving one problem and how many seconds the mouse stays static, and how their facial expressions change along the way on solving learning problems. Since AI machine learning can detect students' performance on their participation, assignments, and the frequency of activity on course websites, then they will be able to make assumptions on students' learning performance. The combination of such AI technology to adaptive learning seems like a good implication for the future personalized education. In this video, I will introduce a concept, Intelligent Adaptive Learning, IAL in short. It serves to personalize learning for each student. Intelligent adaptive learning is defined as digital learning that immerses students in modular learning environments, where every decision a student makes is captured to adjust the student's path and pace, and to provide formative and summative data to the student's teacher. This type of learning tailors instruction to each student's unique needs, current understandings, and interests, while ensuring that all responses subscribe to sound pedagogy. So, what problems can intelligent adaptive learning systems solve? Well, for years, conventional education has been defined by geography and some other social factors. Due to the pandemic, online education becomes the only way for students to get educated. Even though there were many new types of online education that have been helpful in overcoming some of the limitations, they haven't solved the core challenge that intelligent adaptive learning can. That is to shift the teaching model from one-size-fits-all to individualized learning. I believe that AI to adaptive learning represents the best hope for giving all students the chance to reach their full potential, as it helps in providing focused attention to each individual student. Current e-learning methods do fall back when it comes to providing personalized feedback, which intelligent adaptive learning uses algorithm to customize itself to the learner needs to be based on the tasks and the responses. In addition, adaptive learning platforms collect data as learners progress through the modules. This data is then used to help personalize the goals, learner content, and an effective learning path for each learner. Through all this advancement, the possible learning outcomes will be that students learn faster and students will be more likely to be engaged in the learning process. Although some pedagogy have applied emerging AI technology in online education, the application only serves as an auxiliary tool of the learning process and will not directly bring about the improvement of teaching quality and the learning outcomes. But with the emergence of intelligent adaptive learning, it can solve the pain points of traditional online education and is the best way to realize the large-scale personalized education.
Nice.
In speaking of intelligent adaptive learning, let's talk about the adaptive learning first. The call for emphasizing adaptive learning can be mainly traced back to Piaget and Vygotsky's perspective of knowledge acquisition. According to Piaget, instruction should encourage students to actively build their own version of understanding rather than to passively receive direct transmission of information from teachers. As Vygotsky indicated, a learner's mental development consists of two levels: the actual developmental and the zone of proximal development. The former refers to the state at which a person can solve problems independently, whereas the latter describes the state at which one still relies on facilitation from either instructors or peers to solve problems. Suggestions drawn from Vygotsky's theory indicate that instruction should take learners' individual zone of proximal development into consideration and provide adaptive scaffolding to help students progress to the actual developmental level. Intelligent adaptive learning does this. It optimizes learning by establishing a digital learning environment that keeps students in their zone of proximal development. It captures every decision a student makes and adjusts the student's learning trajectory. The key attribute of the intelligent adaptive learning system is not the immediate correction of every student error, but rather that it attempts to identify the psychological cause of mistakes, provides intelligent feedback, and prompts for reflection and rethinking by the student, and thereby lowers the probability that such mistakes will occur again. Lee and Park categorized the approaches of adaptive instruction systems into 5 major types: macro-level adaptive instruction, aptitude treatment interactions, adaptive hypermedia, also known as web-based systems, adaptive systems supporting specific pedagogical methods, and micro-level adaptive instruction. This approach is the most directly focused on students' needs of the 5 categories. The main feature of this approach is to utilize on-task rather than pre-task measurement to diagnose the students' learning behaviors and performance so as to adapt the instruction at the micro level. Typical examples include intelligent tutoring systems and intelligent adaptive learning. Literally speaking, intelligent adaptive learning system refers to the system that combines intelligence and adaptivity. As the image shows, the intelligence aspect is embodied in the cognitive modeling, which combined with the continuous real-time collection and analysis of user data results in the intelligent feedback to the user. This continuous stream of intelligent feedback is provided to the user to keep him on a positive learning trajectory. The data stream is also used by the IAL system to determine whether the user is ready to move on to the next stage. And based on the user's progress, it determines which units would optimize his learning trajectory. A third way that these data are used is in the reports made available to the teachers. While teachers will utilize the system in different ways, ultimately, each teacher-student pair is responsible for maintaining a positive learning trajectory for the students toward mastery of the targeted standards. When comparing with other related technologies, I found that today's IAL system are far superior to similar technologies in the past. For example, computer-assisted instruction, adaptive hypermedia, computer-supported collaborative learning, and individualized learning systems of the past lack the fast speed and the sophistication of today's IAL systems. For today's IAL systems, the processing speeds, advanced learner analytics, and the magnitude of data collected, and the sophisticated models of cognitive development, all of which optimize the learner's experience. Today's IAL system could easily adjust instruction, content, and motivation based on a student's current state of prior knowledge, expertise, and skill levels, and the readiness for progressively advanced complexities of learning. For education purposes, the design elements of the IAL system have great potential for increasing the pace and depth of students' learning, including 5 aspects. First, the effectiveness of tutoring through the continuous stream of intelligent formative feedback to the user, the system, and the teacher. Second, the individualized nonlinear sequence of curriculum and the learning experiences. Third, the individualized pace of learning. Fourth, the regulation of cognitive load. And finally, student engagement through gaming. Okay, now let's talk about the strengths and the limitations of intelligent adaptive learning. As what I have introduced above, IAL is one of the most promising technology in e-learning, and there are some noticeable benefits. First, it could maintain students' motivation through a pedagogical approach that suits the learner's profile and exposing them only to content that targets the knowledge they lack. Second, it optimizes learning time by not wasting the learner's time on notions they already mastered and can thus devote all their energy to the learning they need to focus on. Third, it encourages the successful completion of the learning progress by benefiting from a system that is not only adaptive to each individual's profile, but also because it's based on proven pedagogical methods. On the other hand, IAL is still developing, so there are still some limitations. First, one of the shortages of IAL is the inability to communicate with the students, to cultivate the students' characters, and to build their correct values. Even though IAL could teach students academic lessons, they can hardly educate students outside schools. Second, IAL has not fully realized interactive learning experiences. It is now more inclined to the back-end algorithmic calculation. Personally, I don't have many experiences with the intelligent adaptive learning, but I remember that the GRE tests that I took last year is based on adaptive learning systems. There are 2 sections of verbal testing and 3 levels of difficulty: hard, medium, and easy. The difficulty level of the second section depends on how you perform on the first part. The final score is the combination of 2 sections, and there will be a range of scores for the combination of medium level plus hard level, medium level plus medium level, and medium level plus easy level. But the GRE system only utilized the basic adaptive learning system, so I decided to dig deeper on those who have worked on intelligent adaptive learning systems. Established in 2008, Newton has become the icon of adaptive learning in education industry. One of its education products named Alta, and intelligent adaptive learning technology is at the heart of Alta's personalized learning experience. I requested a demo for several times, but I haven't received any information from Alta until today. Even though I don't have first-hand experience on using this technology, I found people's comments on applying such technology to a classroom. These comments are very positive because they were displayed on the official websites, but I believe that there might be some limitations of the application of Alta, so I watched the YouTube video regarding Newton Alta courseware from both instructor and student's perspective. One thing I like about Alta is that it doesn't penalize students if they answer questions wrong. Instead, they always provide instruction and support. No matter they answer the questions correctly or incorrectly, they give out a detailed explanation of the problem. The difficulty level of later problems will be based on how students perform on their previous problems. It is very clear that the system is very good at gearing students and trying to get them on the path to the mastery. One thing that I don't like is that they don't have feedback to students. I believe that growth-minded and personalized feedback on students' effective efforts let students be more persistent and confident in learning. Finally, the intelligent adaptive learning is a very powerful tool and represents the hope for the next generation of digital learning. It's an extremely important asset in the pedagogical repertoire of the first-century education. Given the promising emerging research on the potential of intelligent adaptive learning system to personalize learning, educators should vet the resource to ensure pedagogical alignment and to plan carefully how the IAL system will be integrated into the learning environment. I believe that this powerful educational tool will transform both online education and in-person education. For online education, the IAL system could be relatively easier applied to the back-end software, and it will further help students learn at home and design personalized learning plan and feedback each time after learned 1 unit of lessons. And this is exactly what Leon's parents need as this video introduced at the very beginning. For in-person education, it might be harder to be implemented in the classroom since the large costs of the electronic devices and the implementation of the IAL system. But it's undeniably true that many teachers could use IAL to provide students with individualized tutoring that guides the students in their learning of specific topics. And teachers could also have access to detailed reports on the progress students are making on the learning standards, which could give teachers a sense on how to best help students learn. In a word, IAL system could be a good assistant for teachers in the classroom and for parents at home.